Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so I've given you my base of what I'm going to start with my brine. All right. Now, like I mentioned, preferably I will take my base right out of the package, and that's how I'm going to start this week. I'll have a package that I'm going to thaw out, and I'm going to go to that first, and then I'm going to start fishing the cured bait if I don't get bit, right? Just to change things up. Then, once I'm done with that particular day, I'll take that bait and I'll throw it right into the brine, and that's how I can kind of maintain it and keep it going without wasting bait when I don't need to. Most important thing when you're talking about herring is the bait itself. You can have all this stuff you want, right? You can go out and get the best of everything, which Procure, well, that'll accomplish that for you all by itself. But it's the bait first. The most important thing to have good herring, well, is to have good herring and take care of it. So this, when I pulled it out of the freezer last night, it's a brand new case of herring. This year's the best that there is, I hope. Once it's thawed, I prefer to have a herring that's not completely thawed when I put it in here, because as it finishes that cure or that thawing process, it will draw in some of this brine, all right? So this is, although completely thawed, which is fine. Most of them are in whatever manufacturer you use or company, they're going to have some sort of sticker on there. Make sure that comes off without removing your scales, all right? The scales are the most important thing. You can see with this bait, hopefully, you can see that they're nice and clear. The eyes are nice and clear. They're very iridescent on the back, lots of blue, lots of purple, and all the scales are on there. Now, if you look at this one, the scales are kind of coming off, which is fine. If I were to have a pack of herring like this, and I'd have a jar that had different color, like the blue or the chartreuse, any of my baits that are missing scales as it comes out of the package, those are what goes into the colored, right? If it's green or blue, chartreuse or blue, that's what goes in there, because that color will overtake that, right? Now, with just chrome baits or natural looking baits, I want the best ones, and that's what we're going to pick through. When you take them off the tray, do it relatively gingerly. You don't want the tails to start sticking, pulling scales off. You're trying to go after the best bait possible. And once you do that, it's just as easy as throwing them head first right into your brine. Use a quart jar. I mean, really, there's lots of ways to do it. I like a quart jar because the baits get beat up less, all right? They don't lose as many scales in a quart jar as they do in something that's laying flat, where it can kind of slosh around. Of course, this will still bounce around a little bit, but in the end, it will keep your scales a little bit better. And, you know, only other couple of things that I might mention here is do your best to not touch your baits, right? I mean, obviously it's going to happen at times, but if you can, try not to touch your baits. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got one bait here, two baits that I don't really like. So I'm going to make sure, three baits that I don't really like. What I'm looking at is that one of them's kind of kinked, not really perfectly straight. The other one's missing scales. And this one here, probably perfect. But now that I'm looking at the top of my jar, I'm getting real close to the rim and I'm not at home. I don't want to make too much of a mess in the studio. All right, so once you get them in there, it's just as simple as crossing your fingers. You got lucky with the level, and I did. All I do there is just kind of rotate it around a little bit. Just make sure that the baits are separated and then the scales aren't getting completely decimated. And that's it, right? Now, with these baits, they're going to come out. Yes, it looks a little bit blue, but they're going to be very natural. They're going to be just shiny. With that extra additive I added in with the Bait Bright, they will sparkle, which is extremely important. But here's another thing that you need to maintain and remember with your herring, and a lot of different eggs as well. Keep them cold. There's no way that you can keep them cold enough, especially now that they're in brine. They ain't freezing, right? It's salt water. It's not freezing. So I've got my little Easy Marine igloo cooler here, and I will stack, 3, sometimes 4, depending on what I've got with me, different flavors of herring, and I've got ice blocks in there with them so that they will stay as cold as I can keep them. That's super important, is to keep those things cold, right? That's not going to shut with that one right there. Some way or the other. There we go. So now you got your cured bait. It's on ice. It's going to be perfect. Here's where you need to remember a couple of things. If you're going to cut plug them, you want to get consistent cuts. Utilize one of these bait boxes. Sometimes I won't use it. I'll just do a hand cut depending on what's going on. But 90% of the time, I'm using one of the Procure bait boxes, miter boxes that you could kind of catch right there, maybe even a side shot. This particular one's got 3 different cut angles. I like either the very flat cut or the one next to it, which is a little bit more of a bevel. But in the end, I want a cut that's going to be very, very clean, right? And the way to do that is to have a very sharp Kershaw and make a very clean cut. You don't want to be doing, okay? Because what that's going to do is just screw up the edges of that bait. Done correctly, you're going to simply put it in that miter box and go one cut. No forward, no back. Just get it in there nice and clean, get it pressed down, and give her a cut. Hopefully all that'll help you out. Don't overthink it. Don't go to the point where you got to have 15 different things in there. Another one that you don't want to overlook, though, I really fell in love with the last couple of years. This is the Procure Bait Spice. Keep that in mind. We'll be back in just a minute to wrap things up.